नहीं ज्वाइन तो किया हुआ है. Okay, you can share the screen from that side. We are muting from here. Dr. Ramu, you can share your screen.
Just a minute, sir.
Desktop. No. Back. Desktop.
We are sorry for the first session. There was some gap in the voice, so we have a recorded version which we'll be editing and hosting in the website for all the ISRS members to view on the later stage.
Sir, can you see my screen?
Yes, sir, we can see your screen.
Yeah. So, can I go ahead with my presentation? Yeah.
Yes, you can start.
Good evening, sirs. So myself, I'm Dr. K. Ramu from the National Center for Coastal Research. It's an institute under the Ministry of Earth Sciences. So I would like to thank the Secretariat, Indian Society of Remote Sensing, for giving me this opportunity to present on the World Environment Day. The previous speaker, I was listening to Dr. Sudhir Kumar sir's presentation. It was very informative, but unfortunately, I could not listen because there were some issues with the audio. But most of the aspects sir has covered. As the theme for this year is to focus on the solutions to plastic pollution, which is under the campaign Beat Plastic Pollution. The recent statistic shows that more than 400 million tons of plastic is produced every year, and the half of which is designed to be used only once. That is the single-use plastics, and of that only less than 10% is recycled. At the end, the good thing is a lot of advancement has taken place in the science, and there are solutions to tackle the problem, and a lot of it is being done all over the world. What is needed is there should be a growing from the public as well as the political pressure to scale up and the speed actions from the governments and other stakeholders to solve this crisis. So this is the overview of my presentation. I will talk on marine litter. What are the types of marine litter? The issues related to the litter. What happens to the litter once it in the marine environment, and the plastic pollution, how these plastics are transported from the land to the oceans, and what happens to the plastics in the ocean, the microplastics and the toxicity of the microplastics, and what are the mitigation efforts being taken globally as well as in India. And finally, I conclude with a takeaway message. So this is the standard definition of marine litter, what marine litter is all about. This is a standard definition by the Marine Strategy Framework Directive, which says that marine litter that includes any form of anthropogenic, manufactured or processed materials discarded, disposed of or abandoned in the marine environment that could be either deliberately or unintentionally, and it may be transported to the oceans by the rivers, drainage, sewage systems, or by the wind. And there are different types of marine litter. The most common ones are the plastics, metal, glass, timber, paper and cardboard, rubber, clothing and textiles. Of course, the tar balls are from the refineries, oil refineries, which is also a type of marine litter. And what are the issues for the litter which is generated on the land and finally it ends up into the oceans, in the coastal seas and the oceans? One is the biological. So the sometimes, many of times, the fishing nets which are used are discarded in the oceans, and then that leads to entanglement of the marine mammals as well as many of the fishes, and the turtles get entangled and ultimately they die. And small plastics are ingested, small marine litter are ingested by the marine organisms. They are also ingested by the aquatic birds. Most very common example is the albatross. They mistake it for the food, and that's how it gets ingested in the body. And these plastic, whatever this litter items, they form as a vector for many of the organisms. Many bacteria get deposited on the litter, and then they get transported into the system. And also the social, the beaches which are littered more results in loss of aesthetics, No one likes to go to a dirty beaches, and that ultimately leads to the economy of the local economy, less of tourists, and it affects the local economy. And another one is the public safety. Many of this, all this litter items, especially the plastics and all, they are coated, or many chemicals are embedded into that, and over a period of the time, these start leaching many of the poisonous chemicals. Many of them are endocrine disrupting chemicals. They leach into the environment, whether it's on the land or into the seawater, and then ultimately it just gets into our bodies. This is a very informative figure which I took from the NOAA's website. It's about the fate of the marine litter, like how long it takes. For these are the decomposition times of the common marine debris which we encounter in the day-to-day life. So you can see a plastic bag, it takes about 20 years for it to decompose. And the plastic bottle it takes about 450 years. And then interestingly, a diaper, disposable diaper, it takes about 450 years for it to decompose. And these are the other litter items, the fishing line, 600 years, and then so on. The cardboard box takes about 2 months to decompose. This figure shows what are the major sources, pathways, and the sink of plastic waste into the marine environment. So what are the different sources of this plastic waste? Are the cities are the common source of this litter, plastic waste, from the clothes or the synthetic products which are used in a day-to-day life, and the landfill where most of this waste generated ends up, and then slowly from the landfill it goes into the other aquatic bodies and ends up into the ocean. Sewage and wastewater is also another important source, and the pathway through the wastewater treatment plants are a major source of the microplastics and the nanoplastics which we find in the water bodies. Roads and traffic are also one of the sources. And agriculture, interestingly, agriculture is also soil is one of the important sources in the sink, because a lot of plastics are used in the modern agriculture, like the plastic sheets, use plastic films, and the large fiber textiles are used in advanced farming practices. And then the sewage sludge is also applied into the agriculture, which contains a lot of plastics. And these days, artificial fertilizers, and many of them are polymer coated. So they also act as a source as well as a sink, and they finally get into the agriculture soils. And then the rivers are a direct pathway. Most of it transport happens through the rivers into the oceans, and finally it ends up into the sediments. So the sediments, the marine sediments, act both as a source and the sink. They get deposited, and over a period of time, again they, due to resuspension, again they're into the water column, and that's how the whole cycle keeps on going. This figure, this is a study which was published in the Science about the transport of the plastics into the oceans. It was in 2021 this paper got published, like how many rivers are responsible for the plastic input into the world oceans. Several scientists have worked on, and then previously it was said that only about 5 rivers are contributing to most of the plastic inputs into the oceans. But later on, it was a recent study, it found that only the top 10 rivers contribute only 18%, but there are other small riverine systems which are contributing about 80% of the plastic input to the oceans. So the rivers, so this is a case wherein the importance of the smaller riverine systems in the transport of the plastics into the ocean. So this is again what happens to the plastics in the ocean. Commonly found plastics are here, and once into the oceans, due to the different processes like the photodegradation, weathering, and so on, the plastics are degrade into smaller size particles, most probably microplastics and the nanoplastics. And the micro and the nano get ingested into the aquatic animals and then goes on to the higher trophic levels. Again, the entanglement, marine mammals, many of them get entangled into the fishing nets, as I mentioned before, which are discarded deliberately or unintentionally into the oceans. And what happens once these plastics are disposed of? They are just broken down into smaller particles, that is called as microplastics. So the sizes here, the classification of the microplastics is based on the size. So there are four major categories: megaplastics, which are less than 1 meter, greater than 1 meter. Macro is between 2.5 centimeters to 1 meter. And what we are talking is about microplastics, which is about less than 5 millimeter size, 100 nanometer to 5 mm, and less than 100 nanometer are called as a nanoplastics. And microplastics also classified based on the shape. Nurdles are some things which all are the our face creams. They have pellets used in personal care products, and the fibers, they are the breakdown of the larger plastics, and then the foam, synthetic clothing, and the fishing nets, and the fragments. This is from the bigger plastics like the food containers and the plastic. So these are the secondary microplastics. And the primary microplastics includes the nurdles, mainly the pellets which are used in the personal care products. So this shows the schematic representation of the microplastics in the water column in the sea flow. So due to the fragmentation of the plastics, the bigger size plastics, due to the UV, ultraviolet, mechanical, or the microbial degradation, they break down into smaller particles. And then these are come under the secondary microplastics. There are the primary microplastics, and then they are ingested by the zooplankton, and then followed by the fish, and then slowly it goes into the higher trophic organisms. In addition to that, due to sedimentation, they get deposited into this sediments or the seafloor. And then there is a biological process called as a bioturbation. By the deposited, the particles which are deposited into the sediments are resuspended into the water column by many of these sediment-dwelling organisms like the crabs and the polychaetes. So they bring into the water column, and then that's how this whole cycle keeps continuing. And then the footprints of the microplastics, we see that microplastics, as mentioned in the previous presentation also, microplastics pollution is everywhere, starting from the mountain and Mount Everest. We find microplastics. We find in the Mariana Trench, which is the deepest ocean. It's they found the microplastics even at a depth of 10,000 meters. And in the wind samples, it is found fibers to 750 micrometer long and less than 300 micrometer. They have been found in the wind. And the human placenta, this is of concern, like 12 microplastic fragments ranging from 5 to 10 microns in size have been found in the placenta, and the polymer type was polypropylene. So I just wanted to say about the human exposure to the micro and the nanoplastic particles. So mainly how we get exposed is mainly through inhalation, mainly through when we inhale the air, the microplastics which are present in the air, also present in the air, we inhale it into our body, and then slowly, if you see some of this get deposited in our alveolar system, in the lungs, and so on. And then it has been found that some microplastics accumulate in the liver and the kidney. And studies have found in the previous presentation also, wherein the stools from about 12 countries, they found microplastics have been found in the stools, suggesting particles are widespread in the human food chain. And dermal exposure also takes place through nanoparticles may penetrate the skin, and so, and then the plastics are found in the human placenta. This is an interesting result wherein you see the microplastics study which has been done to find the microplastics in the air. This is the outdoor air, and it's only about 75 particles in about 50 cubic meters. But in the indoor, see, when we have a lot of items, and then most of the items, they keep on emitting these particles in the air. So it's about 3,000 particles are there in that. See the difference, 75 particles which are outdoors. So it's better to spend more time outdoors rather than the indoor in the offices or at home. And human exposure to the plastic associated chemicals. So what happens actually, that in addition to this, most of the plastics, there are chemicals are added to them with a different purpose. there are plasticizers to have the flexibility. There are flame retardants to retard the breakdown of fire. So, but these chemicals are found very well found to be endocrine disruptors. So when we inhale these particles, so uh, along with the microplastic, these chemical laden particles slowly they get released into the bloodstream. Studies have found that they cause neurodevelopmental disorders. Autism has been found in children with this particular chemicals. Hormonals, they affect the thyroid system, and also different kinds of diseases, even the metabolic diseases have been linked to this kind of chemicals, and the reproductive health also have been reported. And a study says that decreased antibiotic response to the vaccine. So this is an alarming situation wherein the how what effect this microplastics can cause to the humans. I just wanted to share about the plastic consumption in India. This I've taken it from the CPCB site that if you see that consumption rates in India from 61,000 tons in 1996, it is growing exponentially. In 2017, it is about 1.78 million tons, and it has grown at a compounded annual growth rate of 10%. But still, if you see the per capita plastic consumption among the world, India is quite low when you compare with the advanced countries like USA and all. India is only 11 kgs per capita consumption of the plastic consumption, but USA is about more than 100 kgs. So it's considerably low, but an estimate by the Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas suggests that the annual per capita consumption in India would be 20 kg by 2022. So with the more of usage of the plastic consumption, plastic, and then the amount of litter generated also is understandably to increase exponentially. So why we need to do the mitigation efforts are needed. So one thing is which is no one wants to swim with the trash in the waters around. Everyone needs a clean environment, clean waters. No one wants to eat fish without plastic in it, and children go to the beach and should not worry that they are going to step on a syringe because a lot of biomedical waste is also dumped on the beaches. So these are, and then I want animals to no longer be tangled in the trash, as mentioned in the ghost nets and all. So that's the reason why this mitigation efforts are very much needed, so as to avoid this. And then it is quite preventable too. In the World Environment Day 2018, India had joined the Global Clean Seas campaign. Our Prime Minister had expressed concern regarding the marine litter, especially microplastics, which he said is a major transboundary problem. And for that, our Honorable Prime Minister also got the UN Champions of the Earth Award for his extensive efforts to beat plastic pollution. That was an ambitious pledge to eliminate all single-use plastic in India by 2022. What is being done in India? So this is done at trap at Chennai and the Visakhapatnam. These are some booms in the Kuam River. Kuam River is one of the major rivers flowing through Chennai. So booms have been erected, which traps a lot of litter going into the sea. And the stats say that in 1 year, about 20,000 metric tons of litter, which includes 2,000 metric tons of plastics, have been prevented from going into the oceans. So these barriers are really very effective without any energy cost. And once they're trapped, they're just again brought to the river bank with land-based gas. The same is some traps have been deployed in the Visakhapatnam too. A lot of efforts are going on globally. So countries around the world are taking aim at how to end the plastic pollution. This is a report, the recent report. Now also talks have been going on in Nairobi to bring out the internationally legally binding instrument on plastic pollution. It has come a beautiful lot of information, in particular in this particular report, that says turning off the tap, how the world can end plastic pollution and create a circular economy. So this report suggests that a systematic shift from a linear to a circular plastics economy can substantially tackle the global plastic pollution crisis. So mainly they emphasize on the reuse, recycle, and we need to reorient and diversify. And this all come under the policies and the regulatory framework. But in addition to that market transformation, there's an urgent need to deal with the legacy because already a lot of pollutants, a lot of litter is already there in the system. So how to collect and dispose responsibly the plastics which cannot be recycled. Coastal cleanup campaigns, our institute does conduct regularly cleanup campaigns all over India. So to create awareness among the public and also to among the students, and there's a lot of stakeholders. And a very mega campaign was also done under the last year under Swachh Sagar Surakshit Sagar campaign, wherein the beach cleaning was done at 75 beaches all over India for 75 days. So and such kind of activities do help to educate people and to sensitize them about the menace of this litter and plastic especially. And what we encounter mainly, this is a study by us, so like what are the frequently encountered beach litter items? It's mainly the food wrappers, about 19%, cups, beverage bottles. We do get footwear, tires, carry bags, paper pieces, others, and so on. So though plastic, we all say plastic is causing a lot of pollution, but there is also good thing like plastic during the COVID time. So this how unpopular plastic turned the savior in the COVID-19 fight. We are using the masks. We are using many of this is in the airports, any of the sheets covered with the plastic. And when we went to the barber shop also, a lot of what is that, clothing to polypropylene clothing, preventing the spread, and is also in the cubicles and so on. So this is a slogan which was said by, this is a slogan of CIPET. That's the Central Institute of Plastics Engineering Technology. Say yes to plastic, but no to pollution. That we should use plastic, but we should not pollute it. So the takeaway message from my presentation is about more than 50% of the litter what we use single-use plastic. So no to single-use plastics, and there should be a shift in the public attitude, switch to organic or renewable sources, and the shift in the design of the products, and lay emphasis on the circular economy. Awareness, research, and education have a long way to manage this problem, this menace. And that's all for my presentation. Thank you for your patience. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for such an informative lecture. So if anybody wants to ask some question. So, hello, sir. Am I audible?
Yeah.
Sir, I have one question. So in one of the slides, you were showing the microplastic pollutant concentration in outdoor and indoor.
Yeah.
So you said that indoor has more of the pollutant. So can you suggest any mitigation measure to deal with that?
Definitely indoor air will have a lot of microplastic, because there are a lot of, in every product what we use, you see the upholstery, they all have plastics. The different types of polymers have been used, and then because of this heat, weathering, and all, they get emitted into the air. So definitely not only for the microplastic, but most of the contaminants. There's so many. A lot of studies have done indicating that indoor air is more polluted. It depends upon what type of gadgets you are having. If you have more of electronic items, you find different type of pollution. If you have a different upholstery type, you find different types. So it depends. And of course, outdoor air, no doubtly it has, because there is suppose if you spend more time in a park and all, so where I'm saying like not on the traffic, heavy traffic, but in the parks and all, it's supposed to be somewhat cleaner than the indoor air.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
So thank you, sir, for your like good lecture. And
Thank you.
yes, sir. So we have one of our presentations left for the second technical session. So I would like that to conduct now.
I would like to thank our esteemed guest, Dr. Sudhir ji and also Dr. Ramoji, who has spared their time and be with us for the World Environment Day 2023 celebrations. So now we'll have the next session on our Hindi seminar.